And you tell me go.
Yeah, I will. Okay,
Okay.
we are on. So, everyone, this is Colin Jackson, and he is presenting today Taking Your Data Back. Who's got it and how to stop the breach? You're on. Go.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I've got a lot of information to get through, and I've got a half hour to do it. But just so you know ahead of time, I'm going to make the slides available, get them to the B-Sides committee, and sorry about the cuckoo clock. And yeah, I'll make the slides available, and we'll go through this. All right. So basically, we're going to talk a little bit about privacy, why we should care about it, and things like that. And then we're going to discuss. I'm going to talk about the privacy scale. Because a lot of times when I look into privacy, it's like how to go completely off the grid, be a hobbit, hermit, or both. Or, I don't even care. But it's like, it's a scale. I actually snuck into my brother's house so I wouldn't be interrupted to do this. So here we go. Demo fail. Thank Corona for that. So I'm Colin Jackson. I go by Didymus. I'm a senior security engineer. I enjoy lockpicking, OSINT, crypto puzzles, things like that. So, all right, a couple things. This is mostly geared towards U.S. privacy laws. It can apply to other places, other countries, but I live in the U.S., so that's where it's geared towards and things like that. Also, I'm not a lawyer nor an expert, but you get what you pay for kind of a thing. I'm just a privacy enthusiast. So there you have it. Mandatory disclaimer. Okay, here's my top 5 list. I love Michael Basil's stuff. His Intel Techniques and also his security, privacy, and OSINT podcasts are phenomenal. I listen to him religiously. Same with Justin Carroll. He's on the podcast several times. John Jarvis has done some presentations in the past. I really enjoy his stuff. Also, Kat Murdoch, Kate Rose. She has this cool fashion company. She talks about it in DEF CON. And then honorable mention for sure is the Hated Ones YouTube channel. So, all right, so talking a little bit about privacy. So why should we care? How many of you have talked to family or loved ones or friends and they're like, why should I care? My life's an open book. I have nothing to hide. And it's interesting because when people say this, it's like, well, you may have nothing to hide, but that's basically like saying, you'd be totally comfortable with putting cameras in every room of your house that are always on 24/7. And you're totally fine with that. There's still a place for privacy. And, this is something that we should be advocating for. We should be voting for politicians who are privacy advocates and things like that. One clarification I do want to make is that security is not privacy. They're tightly coupled and both important. Security is more the protection, prevention, detection of vulnerabilities and things like that. Privacy is more controlling and protecting data. That's not a quote or anything. That's me. That's my take on it. So a quick poll. This is just something I'm going to go through some things, and it just kind of like, I can't see you, but like raise your hand or whatever. These are like concerns, privacy concerns to you. So things like tailored advertising. Does it kind of bother you when you get specific ads and notifications? Like I was just talking about that, and now I'm getting an ad for it. Anonymous data collection. I put it in quotes because, they're like, we're going to sell your data to third party, but it's okay. We're going to anonymize it. We're going to replace your name with a GUID or UUID. So it's anonymous, but it's like you can still correlate it. Cameras and microphones on any device you can buy nowadays. How many of you are concerned with this? I am, and I'm going to be talking about some things you can do. Facial recognition. This is always a concern for me. It's like, why when I go into a store, why do they need to have facial recognition and recognize that I'm coming back in, or different ways that different organizations or people can track you? One of the few good things that have come from this pandemic is it's finally socially acceptable to wear a mask everywhere, which I was totally wanting to do before there was a pandemic, and now it's great. It's like, I'm going to wear a mask. Oh, but don't you hate it? It's like, no. I kind of love it. I don't want people photographing my face without my consent. Cell phone tracking and location-enabled apps. So have you ever looked at your phone and all the permissions that all the apps have? And there's some nasty apps. Like, why does my calculator app need to know my location? Why does it need access to my contacts, creepy stuff like that. That's an extreme example, but I'm sure there's some that exist out there. EXIF data. So if you're not familiar with EXIF data, this is metadata attached to files, things like photos, videos, even like documents and things like that. If you take Mr. Kilroy's cloud forensics workshops or things like that, he talks about EXIF data. CTF challenges, a lot of times there's EXIF data. So if you're doing CTF, maybe that if you download the EXIF tool, that'll help you. I don't know, but I recommend having it. Third-party data sharing. We kind of talked about this, but think of the terms and conditions where like, we've updated our terms and conditions. I read that as like, we are now selling your data to another person or another company. And it just bothers me, Here's the worst one. And this is one I recently added. Second-party data sharing. So we know what third party is. You have a company and another company wants to buy data and you set up an agreement. But second party, what if a company or a social media company like Facebook buys 3 shares of stocks in XYZ company? By definition, Facebook now owns 3 shares worth of that company, thereby making them a second party. And you think about terms and conditions where it talks about how, selling anonymized data to third parties, never mentions second parties or sister corporations or, things that fall under the conglomerate corporate umbrella. I don't know if that's really the case, but it was something that I thought about. I heard it on a podcast and I thought, I hate that. We hates it. So, all right. So what do you start doing? What data is out there? So you can download your data. One of the nice things about CCPA and GDPR is you can request your data. So I have links in the appendix that we'll share out later, but you can request all of your Amazon data, everything you've typed, everything you've searched for, added to your cart, added to a list. Same with Facebook. I recently deleted my Facebook because I'm just sick of it. Before I deleted it, I downloaded all my stuff just to see what they had on me, and it was creeptastic. I hated it. And let's be honest, it's kind of the worst time to have a social media account during election season. Just saying. Social media account. Yeah. You can also request your data from Google, from people search websites, things like that. It's out there. Now, as for getting it deleted, that's a different case. So, John Jarvis, I mentioned him earlier. I enjoy the content he puts out, but he gave a talk at B-Side Salt Lake a couple years ago and also DEF CON 25 at the Crypto and Privacy Village. But it was about surveillance capitalism. He talks about how privacy is secrecy and privacy is also about control. Because of time, I'm not going to read through all this, but it talks about how, keep secret, things that are important to you or whatever. You shouldn't just be, privacy is not dead. It's still important. It protects people. It needs to be a right. Privacy is all about control. So I don't have a problem with sharing certain things about my life with certain groups. I do have a problem with unknowingly sharing everything about my life with anyone who wants to buy it. And this is a quote from Bruce Schneier that talks about it. How being able to control data, control your information, failure to do so is a control failure, a privacy failure. So a couple things. Privacy is right to consent. It should be a human right, and privacy is always evolving. If you watched Amber's talk earlier today about privacy during times of pandemic, very good. I enjoyed it. Go check it out. It's already uploaded on YouTube. So, okay. Data is becoming everything. We always hear about big data, stuff like that. But this quote near the bottom, all of us no longer exist to be employed and served. We exist to be harvested for behavioral data. So I'm not trying to throw too much FUD, but I'm trying to make you aware that, this is a booming business, just, getting data and using it for who knows why. So this is a quote. This is from a guy named Cosmo. He's kind of your TED Talk, futurist talker thing, but he talks about how there's a war going on, and it's not about bullets or things like that. It's about who controls the information, what we see, what we hear, how we work, and what we think. It's all about the information. Okay, he's actually not a speaker. This is from the movie Sneakers, which I would argue is one of the best hacker movies of all time. If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's really good. There are 2 real-life documentaries out right now on Netflix. One is called The Great Hack, and I included this GIF or GIF image. Let's not get political. GIF or GIF of what's going on in this And like people are walking around and they added these little graphics of this data, almost like data exhaust leaving our devices all the time. And people are just snarfing this up. They're just, anything they can get. And the great hack is largely focused on the Cambridge Analytica 2016 presidential election situation. How they had over 500, I think it was 500 data points for every person in the US who could vote, and how they were using this data to influence votes. Creepy. More recently, there was this documentary that came out on Netflix called The Social Dilemma, and this is more about the dangers of social media, manipulating people to buy things or do certain things, or like basically hack your emotions. It's kind of, it was eye-opening. I did enjoy it. Kind of depressing, not gonna lie. But, and then this is an older picture I found a while ago, but if Mark Zuckerberg puts tape on his camera and microphone, maybe you should too. I mean, works for, let's be honest, it's like the biggest paid spy agency in the world, but that's my opinion. Again, I'm not a lawyer. So now that I've thrown enough FUD at you, where do we fit? Where am I on this privacy scale? So this is something that I came up with. So on the left-hand side, this is more like share everything. I have nothing to hide. I say influencer, not in like a negative way, like if that's something you do, but it's like, their life is an open book. If you follow them, you pretty much have a step-by-step what they do throughout the day's thing. And then moving from left to the right, all the way to the extremely private off the grid. So I'm just going to take a second and talk about each of these four things. And it's not like a 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a scale. You can go anywhere on it pretty much. So starting on the left, we have our influencer overshare. I take pictures of every plate of food I eat. I post everything on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, XYZ. I post everything all the time. Overshare everything. I'm fine people knowing this. I'm not a fan of this. I'll be totally honest. I imagine a lot of people who attend B-Sides don't fit in this demographic. It's something concerning. How does this affect us? What if they take pictures of us and post pictures of us? And it's like, I didn't want you to post pictures of me on vacation with you. I post vacation pictures, but to certain people after I'm home, not like, oh, I'm on vacation with this influencer. Come rob my house. Some things to consider. Moving on, we'll move over to the privacy conscious. So this is more like, you have social media, but you do the best practices. You lock down your account. You set everything to only share with friends or whatever by default. Hopefully, you're using multi-factor and two-factor authentication to log into these accounts. And, you're aware, privacy conscious, privacy aware. You ask questions before, you question, like you install an app and it's like, hey, this needs access to your location or to your files on your device or something like that. Maybe you're aware of data breaches. Maybe you've even subscribed to put some of your email addresses in haveibeenpwned.com. So when that email shows up in a new data breach, you get a notification. And, maybe you have credit and identity monitoring, probably because you're in a breach. But that's kind of the privacy conscious. Okay, moving on to the next one, privacy enthusiast. So this is like avoid social media, or like you have social media accounts for a specific reason. You don't use your social media to log into other accounts, for example. You use aliases for things. Like you order stuff from Amazon, but it comes in as a different name. This is also kind of where the gray man, gray woman concept comes in. And we'll talk about this a little later, but it's more like hiding in plain sight or things like that. Nothing's notable or stands out about you when you're in public or whatever. You may have dedicated devices. I wrote burner devices, but I mean things like you have a cell phone you use for making calls, and you have a cell phone for games, or you have a VM or a dedicated laptop for security conferences when you're doing CTFs and stuff. Or you have a VM and you do all your shopping and banking on that VM, and you don't use one computer to do everything on everything. Let's talk about disinformation for a minute. So this is where, you're actively, maybe passively, but you're ordering stuff under a different name at your house. So when they share that data to marketing or advertisements or whatever, it's like, hey, this address, who lives here? Is like, well, so-and-so lives here, but we also have so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. I don't know who actually lives there. I mean, this guy is based on our data. He's like some kind of financial guy, but at the same house, there's a woman who lives there and she's really into this type of stuff. And it's like, we don't have a good read on this, but their neighbors, we know everything about them. That sort of disinformation campaign. You can read more about it. Also use privacy apps. Maybe you have a paid VPN service. I highly recommend paid over free VPN services. And then clear on the right side, you have your off the grid, extremely private. This would be things like government and law enforcement officials who could be victims of doxing or things like that. Victims of abuse, physical or domestic or things like that, where they need to hide for legit, like, life and limb kind of harm. And also wealthy, rich, famous people might be on this as well. Like, you don't want stalkers finding you. So this is the privacy scale. We'll come back to this in a little bit. All right. So privacy areas, there's different areas where you can strengthen and improve your privacy. Things like your phone, your email providers, your social media, how you interact socially, and your lifestyle. So I've mentioned OSINT a couple times, but open source intelligence. This is using openly, freely available information to get information. So this is like your Facebook stalking or your LinkedIn social media, whatever. Also, access to public records. There are things on public record, and you can use that to find information about people, voting records, home address, things like that. There's also these people search websites, which I absolutely hate, but they basically do this, and yeah, 100% legal, totally creepy. I hate it. Let's talk about browsers. So recently they've been saying, privacy advocates have been saying, kind of avoid Google Chrome. They have great security, but their privacy is kind of a nightmare. Firefox is getting more secure from a privacy standpoint. They're having container tabs and different things like that. And it's more privacy by default, which is nice. Brave browser, which is built on Chromium, has baked into it privacy-focused plugins, incognito tabs, and incognito tabs with Tor. We'll talk about Tor in a second. Search engines. So like we showed earlier, there's different major providers, like even Google. You can request your Google data and stuff you searched for shows up. Whereas DuckDuckGo, I'm sure you've seen billboards all over the place recently, because I have, but use DuckDuckGo, which doesn't track your searches and things like that. There's also several plugins and extensions that you can put into browsers, like the EFF makes a few of them, but there's things like Privacy Badger and HTTPS Everywhere, and your uBlock, your NoScript, all these different things that can block unnecessary stuff, third-party cookies, things like that. Okay, sorry if I'm moving a little quick, but phones. So with your phones, there's lots that we can say about it. MySudo is a newer company where you can actually have like a dedicated profile, email, phone number, a VoIP phone number, and you can like have a shopping one, or you can have like a browsing one or something like that. Pretty affordable. I have it, so I have different phone numbers for different things. There's also Mint Mobile, which is like, there's some accounts that you sign up for, they want to have an actual phone number. They can detect if it's a VoIP number. You can go to Amazon right now and you can get 2 Mint Mobile SIM cards for $5. And these aren't VoIP. These are like completely legit, and you can put them in a phone. And one of the things that people recommend, like if you're going to set up accounts, get this, you have a week free trial. You can create all your accounts tied to an actual cell phone number, then enable two-factor authentication to use an authenticator app. And then after a week, your trial's up. As long as you never receive a phone call or text messages for 2FA, you should be good to go. Something to consider. Apps versus PWA. So that's progressive web apps. So instead of installing like the YouTube app for whatever reason, it has access to all stuff on your phone, you use the browser, and basically they have like a web app version that runs from the browser. So you can have the settings on the browser and not worry about running the actual app on your phone. Private DNS, these are settings you can make in your phone, encrypt your phone, password protected biometrics. You can use that for some things. However, there are some security concerns around using biometrics to unlock your phone. They need a warrant to unlock your phone by password. They do not need a warrant to unlock your phone with your biometrics. Something to consider. Okay, I'm not going to go into this too much, but there's different flavors of Android OS, or like forks of it. There is this Pure OS Librem phone. It's It's vaporware right now. They're working on it, but it's like a privacy-focused phone. You can check it out. But there is today Graphene and Lineage OS, which are open source, so it's got scrutiny from pretty much anyone who wants to look at it. No Google services. Those of you who use CyanogenMod, that's what Lineage OS became. And there's also an app store called F-Droid, which is similar to your Google Play. Works on pixels. Worth looking at. Okay, a couple other things. So there's privacy and security apps you can install. Bouncer's a good one. NetGuard and Lockdown are firewall-based ones. Get a VPN client. So my phone, for example, it's got an always-on VPN. And then I also put these silent pocket stickers. They're on my computer most of the time, except right now. And they're also on my phone. And then some other things to consider is how your microphone on your phone can be used to like hear things around you or like stuff like that. So there's this mic block. This is my phone. And I keep this in here, except when I need to do something. They are working on connectors for iPhones and things that don't have a headphone jack. If you don't think your microphone's listening to you, stick it by the radio for a couple days, like a Spanish music channel, and then see if you start getting advertisements in Spanish. Creepy, right? Couple other things. There's secure messaging. So you want full, like zero knowledge into an encrypted messaging. So Signal, Sudo, which is like my Sudo, Wire, Wicker, Keybase. These are all good things. Why does your cell phone provider need to have access to your messaging? As far as email, Proton Mail is a very popular one. There's other ones out there. There's a comparison guide in the appendix. I'll make sure everyone gets it who wants it. Phone browsers. So there's a DuckDuckGo mobile browser. They don't have it for desktop, but that one's really fun. So I use that and Brave on my phone. And then as for secure storage, there's things like SpiderOak. Recently, Proton has come out with Proton Drive, which is encrypted cloud storage. So I mentioned this, but there's that one privacy site. He compares different email providers as well as VPN providers. It's worth taking a look at. You can do other things like this. I mentioned down at the bottom in emails, you can actually do the email plus whatever site so you can know where you're getting garbage from. This used to work, but now pretty much people can just write a regex that strips out the plus whatever and get your true email address. It's annoying. Social media. So if you're going to have social media, I would encourage you to have social media for a specific reason. Like LinkedIn for business contact, job search, just that thing. I don't want to use it for everything. As always, lock it down, 2FA, review often. And then this is my good friend. I call him Bob. He's actually from thispersondoesnotexist.com. Check out that website. It's like AI generated faces from thousands of different photos and creates a face that's not a real person. It's kind of fun. You can use that for profile pics and everything. All right, so lifestyle. I'm going to try to wrap up here quick, but Faraday bags. Oh, I jumped a bit. The Faraday bags are kind of useful. I like them. This is one that I have, and it actually has EMF shielding. It'll block Bluetooth, radio, all sorts of stuff. Throw your phone in there, your key fobs, your laptop. It's because even if you put your phone in airplane mode, it can still have GPS. Or even if you pull the SIM card out of your phone, it still can make emergency calls, meaning it can still triangulate off of cell towers. There's lots of stuff about phones we could talk about, but Faraday bag kind of removes a lot of that, which is, it's an interesting thought experiment. Privacy.com. So this is something you can link up to a credit card or a PayPal account or something like that. But basically, you can generate credit card numbers for specific things, like a streaming service, for example. I use Hulu, Netflix, whatever, and I automatically load this much every month, and this card pays for it. If that card ever gets stolen, it only works at Netflix and Hulu or whatever. It's worth looking at. Faraday bags, disinformation campaigns. Get a magazine subscription at your house. Of a magazine you'd actually read, but like in a different name or something. I mentioned adversarial clothing. This is kind of to confuse license plate readers. If anyone wants to get me one, I'm a size large. But anyway, really cool stuff. I think it's kind of hilarious. And then kind of the gray man, gray woman concept, wearing nondescript plain clothes that don't really stick out. Hiding in plain sight sort of stuff. Home network, we could have a whole talk on this, but there's different things you can do. You can have a pfSense firewall, use like a Protectly vault or something for that. Or maybe you just want to block all the traffic going to marketers. So you could do like a Pi-hole or a Falcon Gate on a little Raspberry Pi. Hated One has a great YouTube video. He has several. Well, talking about the differences between having a VPN versus Tor. Tor is definitely more anonymity. VPN's more control where your data goes out through the internet through instead of just whatever. And wrapping up, true anonymity is very, very difficult. It's very hard to be truly anonymous. And privacy is like a journey. It's not like I've done these things and now I'm good. It's something you review constantly. I don't really have time to go through this. I was thinking of doing a live demo, but I've got some screenshots. But some things that I have on my devices, like I have an always-on VPN. I use HMA, Proton VPN or PIA is good as well. Talking about using the progressive web apps versus the actual apps, you go to the website and then you hit save to home or whatever, and then you basically have a shortcut link to a browser to that thing. That's just a screenshot. I don't use Facebook or whatever. And it's also nice using these privacy-focused browsers because they'll block certain things or upgrade. They'll actually rate how bad the site is. You can go into your different settings, turn on private DNS. This is bouncer and lockdown. Lockdown is more like a firewall for your phone. You can control what gets sent out. Bouncer is more like a permissions thing. So like, let's say you have a running app. You go for a run and you enable GPS. Like, whoa, you just gave GPS to this app. You sure you want to do that? Like, yeah, I can remove it, or say, keep it on for a half hour and then automatically remove it for me. Don't, because sometimes you might enable GPS and then forget about it. Bouncers is basically what that takes care of. So what do we do now? So figure out where you are in the privacy scale. I encourage you to go to inteltechniques.com and download his free workbook. It's like his opt-out of people searching things. Kind of see what information about you is out there and figure out where you are on this privacy scale. And then figure out where you want to be and start making the steps. And I have links to how you can do this. There's the data detox. There's Michael Basil's stuff. There's things you can do to get where you want to be on the privacy scale. So we'll go to questions. I'll do a little teaser, but I have several links in the appendix that we're going to make available to everyone somehow. But yeah, if you have any questions, I'm on Twitter, Keybase, Discord, happy to talk. And yeah, looks like we got a couple minutes.
Yeah, we have about 3 minutes left. Let me check the Discord real quick and see if there's anything that there wasn't last time I looked.
Sorry if that was fast. I'm a little out of breath, but
no, that was just about right. Actually, you're right within time. I don't see anything yet, so I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and end it now. And if there are any other questions, you can post them in the Track One chat. And if you wouldn't mind dropping in and there were some requests for slides, so if you want to pop a link in there, that would be awesome.
Okay.
Otherwise, thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for your time.